or Suk, both who have been missing.
Also, I can say Danny not arrested.
Not arrested.
Not arrested, as far as we know.
Probably not a murderer.
Definitely, potentially a murderer.
That all could have changed this morning.
That's a good one. Rust is back. Hey, Jeff Rust.
Hey, what's happening?
How you doing?
Holla at your boy.
If that is the new one, I'm here for it.
I love that. That's fantastic.
I need more of that.
Holla at your boy.
Holla at your boy.
Holler at your boy.
Holla at your boy.
Yeah, that's couldn't be more different than that one.
That's fantastic.
I want more of that. I need more of that in my life.
Need
Jeff
more
Rust
Holla at
back
your
in
boy.
action, but Danny not here. He went down to the USC game with the rest of the Odyssey crew on the party bus.
Got banged up.
He got final results of that poll. We need to go to that one from Friday. You're trying to make fetch a thing, and it's just not happening.
I'm not making fetch a thing. Banged up is a thing. You guys just aren't with my colloquial terms.
Official poll on Friday. I got banged up on Saturday. That was a quote from Will Ortner. That means hurt, drunk, car accident, or other. Hurt, 49.9%.
Doesn't sound like 50. I don't think we have an overwhelming majority here.
Like you said, round up.
No,
Well, what?
it's 49.1.
That would make it a plurality, right?
We're
right?
rounding down.
What?
What does the Electoral College say about this vote?
Well, the Electoral College would say hurt wins.
Hurt wins? Are we sure? But what if the states that I won have more votes? What if I won Texas, California, and Florida, sir?
We're ready to make the call.
He's going young people. No, we're making the call. It does still mean hurt. But Danny did get banged up. Everybody got banged up that was on that bus.
He did, yeah.
But he physically got banged up too. Not on the bus.
At the field,
Yeah.
right?
Not playing in the game.
He did not take a hit from Blake Purchase.
He did not. But he is officially, let's label him as day-to-day moving forward. Danny is day-to-day moving forward with an undisclosed injury. We're still waiting on the results of imaging.
We're still waiting on MRI results.
Oh, I
Him
thought
and
it was.
Deshaun Watson.
I thought it was disclosed. I had my update. It was a hamstring injury.
It is a hamstring injury he is day-to-day with. But, I mean, look, I don't know severity of it. We don't know if we're dealing with a pull, a strain, a tear. But
Well, look, hamstrings are tough. Hamstrings, that's an injury. If you don't treat it right, that could keep you out for months.
are you just trying to take his job?
Absolutely not. But I would like reps. Look, Justin Jefferson has been out for months. He says he's not coming back till he's 100% healthy. I'm not here to take anyone's job. I want us all to succeed.
You do, and you're a team player, you're a team guy. But
The team.
I'm hoping that his hamstring is okay because he's day to day.
I think it'll be okay.
This is a ding. This is a ding, but he's at the doctor right now.
Sometimes you get banged up on the weekends, and then what is it? Rice method? Rest, elevate, ice, heat, compression, something?
I don't know if you know how to spell rice, but
H is silent.
it's rest, ice, compression, and elevate.
Yeah, but you also have to heat it
And
sometimes.
you just did RECI or
No,
IIEC.
Yeah, my head hurts.
Hey, look, I only passed one spelling test, and I cheated like no other to pass that spelling test. So, shouts out Mrs. Kramer's third grade class.
Wait, in third grade, you only passed one spelling?
Yep, I passed one, and I cheated. I cheated so bad. The girl next to me was like the best speller in the class. She was like like third grade top speller. You know how they do the spelling test at the end where you all stand up, pretend like you're going to go to script spelling bee. She won that. So then I made sure to sit next to her, and I just was looking over the folder the whole time. I don't know how the teacher didn't catch me.
So how long, did that send you down a pathway of cheating through your academic career?
No, I didn't cheat that often. On occasion, I collaborated a lot. There was a lot of collaboration. And you know what? I still stand by my Central Washington Student Athlete of the Year award. So There we
That
go.
happened.
That did happen. Mm-hmm. And I have the pictures to prove it.
Huh. Do you think it was like a
Anymore.
joke? Like they did it like ironically?
Well, I think they were just like, he has a high GPA. Let's not look behind the curtain that all of his classes are online. Oh, and he's a
Nope.
comm major.
I wonder how many times that happens. Like when you see like the student, like when they're propping them up on game on TV, you'll be like, "Hey, here's the scholar athlete of the week," and they're guys like he's like taking 2 classes. One of them's ballroom dancing. Like they did this with
Right.
Matt Leinart, right? Remember
Right.
when Matt Leinart was a senior and all he was taking was ballroom dancing because all he just needed to be taking a class at USC, and they're like. Here he is with his 4.0 GPA, Matt Leinart. It's like he's passing a Division I athlete is passing ballroom dancing, so that's our scholar athlete.
Hey, I played with a guy who was never higher than a 2.1 until his final year. His last quarter he was at Central, he had 1 class, and it was weightlifting
There we go.
with our strength coach.
And he got a B.
He had an A-. He might have missed a class or 2 in a tank, if you will.
Oh,
He got banged up pretty tough on a Tuesday night
Yeah.
once.
that'd be a drunk tank, and he missed his 1 class.
He missed his 1 class. His class that was twice a week on at noon on Mondays and Wednesdays. He was in Seattle in a tank.
Hey, Seattle.
Yep.
All right. Your feedback on the Vancouver Ford text line 503-864-6326. We've got a lot of texts coming in. Danny's taking the ricochet shots everywhere from the YouTube comments, youtube.com/1080am The Fan. Go watch, like, subscribe, do all of those things. And you can watch all of our live and local programming where we have Ginger Fit Dad is saying Danny's just missing today because he's embarrassed his Trojans. Score should have been worse than it was.
It's always a tough day when your Trojans fail.
Boy, you ain't lying.
It's always a tough day. Sometimes you got to sit those ones out.
Yeah. We'll have a lot on that game coming up throughout the course of this show. We got football today. A lot of football to discuss because there's a lot going on. We already have the firing cycle in college football has started. It's well underway. We'll discuss Jimbo Fisher out at Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Boise State, and then not a firing, a retiring.
Yeah.
San Diego State is open.
Retiring.
Yeah.
He was not forced out.
Yeah. Brady Hoke.
The San Diego Union Tribune is not saying that at all. that he was forced out.
Yeah.
He left
They're not.
willingly.
Yeah.
He didn't want to be there anymore.
Yeah. Those are, you can hear the air quotes in that. But technically,
It's like, I don't practice personal hygiene.
a retiring. Everybody's scared of UNLV now in the Mountain West.
Yeah, well,
UNLV's coming for you. So
well, everyone knows how great of a job that UNLV job is. It's coveted.
Those rebels be running.
Yeah, they are. Although I'll tell you what, prettiest practice field I've ever gotten to be on. That was a fun time.
UNLV's.
Yeah, well, when I was at Central, shout out Central Washington Wildcats, we made the playoffs. Go Cats. When we would go and play Dixie State, now Utah State, we would fly into
No,
Vegas.
Utah Tech.
Sorry, Utah Tech. Thank you.
And drive to St. George. We did that
Oh,
one
yeah.
too. Yeah.
We would fly into Vegas, and then we would practice at the UNLV field, on their practice field.
Mm.
It's sweet, dude. It's like just off the strip, but you can still see the strip. There's like an In-N-Out burger right next to it. It's beautiful.
The In-N-Out. There's no more offensive line quote that you could have told us in that moment than it was beautiful. There was an In-N-Out burger right next to it. It was beautiful. It was great.
It was a sight to behold. There wasn't a big line. It wasn't one of those In-N-Out burgers. It was great.
Okay.
I loved it.
All right. Here we are.
The palm trees.
All right. Let's get this show on the road, shall we? We have Ducks win over USC. The Beavers convincing over
Yeah.
Stanford. And it was a moment that you sit there and you go, all right, this is where the season is coming to a head for the Beavers. And boy, were they impressive. We got a lot of college football that we need to get to. But was the statement enough on Saturday night? Danny and Dusty on the Fan. 3 straight in the series for Oregon. You know the last time USC won a game against Oregon? What year that was?
2016.
It was 2016.
Wow,
Yeah.
look at me, super smart.
Oregon has won 5 of the last 6.
Check out the big brain on Brad.
That's right.
5 of the last 6 dating back to 2012. So Oregon has dominated this this series of late. But what we saw on Saturday was, Oregon didn't cover. It was a 15 to 16 point line, depending on when you bet it and where you got it. But Oregon did not cover that one, despite a late touchdown, backdoor cover from USC, 36 to 27. And the question is, and this is the point of the season that we're at. Oregon beats USC, and a few years ago, that used to just be enough weight to stand on its own.
Right.
That is going to, either push you up or hold you steady. And now we're sitting there and we're looking at, was 9 enough to impress people with Oregon's win over USC?
Well, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be. I was looking at, guys will go on Twitter or X and they'll post, hey, I'm an AP voter. Here are the people that I voted for. And the one that I saw, Brett McMurphy with Action Network, he had Texas over Oregon, and he had Oregon over Texas for a very long time.
Yep.
And the problem is like Oregon played USC almost too late, right? If you play USC before they play Notre Dame and you win that game, that's a top 10 win. That's a big game. You're playing USC after they've already lost, 3 games. You end up being their 4th game. It's not as big of a deal. They're not ranked anymore. And the problem is, because it's such a late game, most people are going to watch this game or look at the box score and go, oh, well, they only beat them by 9. It must have been close the entire way. Oregon dominated that game. And if they don't shoot themselves in the foot with a bunch of stupid penalties, they win that game by 3 or 4 touchdowns. But they did, and so that score looks a lot tighter than it really was.
Look, that drive where they just kind of kept shooting themselves in the foot and backing themselves up, they get inside the 5-yard line, and you're going, what is going on here? And they march themselves backwards. If you keep getting 6, right, that game goes from 9 to 30 in an instant.
100%. And if you don't chase 2-point conversions.
Right. Yeah. But okay.
The first one, I don't have a problem with. The second one, I do.
The second one where you're chasing the points, where
You're
it's just
chasing.
kicking the extra point. That's exactly where I stand on that one, too. Even though I don't think that the look was necessarily there to throw the football on the swinging gate.
Right.
But at that point, there's no need to chase it. And then, again, we have another missed field goal.
Yeah.
And this is going to be an ongoing thing where, look, Camden Lewis wants to make every single kick when he comes out on the field. We all know that. But is this going to be something where, as this season progresses and you get in another tight game, as you're looking down the schedule and you say Arizona State this week, weird things have happened in the desert late in the year for Oregon. Then you have Oregon State. All bets are off in that one. And then a potential Pac-12 championship game where you are going to have in one of those 3 games, hell, it might be all 3 of those games. You may need a kicker. And it's not gonna be all easy sailing, even like in this game where USC outscores them 13-7 to make the score more respectable at the end. You never had the feeling that the game was gonna be in doubt. You will need a kicker at some point this year, though. And I think that's something that I know is in the back of everybody that's watching these Duck games.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you've had one game where you needed a kicker, and frankly, he didn't show up. Now, is it all his fault because he missed that kick? Not necessarily, but your job is to go out there and execute, and he didn't execute. And, I'm around the same age as a lot of these guys, so I don't have as hard of a time calling people out for that. But if you don't think that you're going to need him again in the Oregon State game or in the UW game, you're crazy. You are going to have to kick field goals, and he's going to have to make them.
And it's an amazing thing because, and we can talk about this a little bit later, but I think that the game being so late, it benefited Bo Nix in the Heisman conversation because I think what people did was they watched early in the game and they saw Oregon go up early, and then they probably just turned the TV off, went to bed. You open up the box score the next day and you're like, oh my gosh, it was only a 9-point game. You don't get a feel for how that game played out and that Oregon did control it. But it will help Bo Nix at the end of the day with the Heisman race because the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, when you look at their stats side by side, Bo Nix going 21 of 31 in for 412 yards and 4 tutties, and the way that Oregon really put the clamps down on Caleb Williams, that will pop off.
Right.
But I don't think the final score will, and that's one of the things that watching that game, and I know that a lot of folks in like we have it in the YouTube comments right now, like, hey, Oregon was in control of that game. It was 36-14, and then there was a pass interference call, which I thought was a little ticky-tack, especially with a ball that was poorly thrown, and the receiver trying to come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you call that one.
It wasn't a PI.
It did. The game was not. It was in hand. Like Oregon was controlling. If that goes incomplete, and you're on that was fourth down in their own territory.
Right.
Oregon goes down. They tack another one on.
Another touchdown.
They go all DJ Khaled. Another one.
Another one. My biggest issue is this, and it seems to keep rearing its head time and time again, is the offensive line penalties when you're about to score. It's offensive line penalties in the red zone. And this isn't the first game where you have like a dumb jump off sides penalty, where that's just being disciplined and understanding what the snap count is. You have a bad set, so now you have to hold. And that takes away a first down where Bo found Bucky Irving on that little Texas route that they ran. The offensive line, and I love that they have the ability to have 8 guys in that they rotate. And it's clearly made a huge difference because they can go fast and guys are healthy, and you haven't had to worry about like, oh, we lost our left tackle. Will we have someone who can replace him?
And
that isn't
lean
something
on teams later in games too.
Right, 100%. But at the same time, it seems like you have these little issues where because guys aren't in the complete flow of the game or because they have a lack of focus for 1 minute, one play, it ends up costing you, and it leads to you having to kick field goals. And in some cases, it leads to you missing field goals, right? Mm-hmm. They have to do better, and they have to execute better at that offensive line position pre-snap. Because when they are struggling or when they're having drives that stall, it's not on Bo, it's not on Bucky, it's not like there's very few times other than Tez where I've been like, wow, guys are dropping the ball. It's the offensive line, and it's because they're not setting the way they need to. So they're undersetting a guy, so they have to hold, and then they get a holding penalty, or they jump off sides because they're not thinking about it, or they go too far downfield, an eligible man downfield.
I think that's the thing that
they have to play better.
Is glaring is that it's in a lot of different ways.
It's
like they've done they've false starts, holds, ineligible man downfield. It's kind of like any way that they possibly could, they're finding ways to have those, and those can be drive killers against great teams. And USC is not a great team, and I think that was glaring. And I think one thing that if you look at the 2 games that were closer than they should have been, the USC game, 13 penalties, 120 yards. Texas Tech, 14 penalties, 124 yards.
That's you keeping them in it.
Yeah, you're allowing a team to hang around. That with the way that defense played, I thought Oregon's defense was incredible.
Fantastic.
When you take Caleb Williams and think about it, and you bottle him up to where the Ducks held SC to 242 yards of total offense through the first 3 quarters of the game. The first 3 quarters of the game, you hold Caleb Williams to 169 yards passing and not a single touchdown throw. I mean, that is where you know that at some point Caleb Williams, because of how good he is going to make his mark and imprint on the game. I thought for those, and he did in the 4th quarter, no doubt about it. But I thought Oregon did a phenomenal job of staying in their passing lanes for the most part. There were still the plays where he spun out. One was just a wild over pursuit on a 3rd down that allowed him to spin out. But they bottled him up, created that pocket, and then just kind of suffocated around him. And downfield, the corners did a really good job. I thought, when they went and they scored the touchdown, the only touchdown pass that Caleb Williams had, they went to Brendan Rice. Triquiz Bridges made a phenomenal play on the football because he had his hand on the back of Brendan Rice with his right hand, and when the ball came, he took his hand off, went in front, slapped the ball down. How many times we see that play happen where you keep your hand on the back and that's where the flag comes out?
Right, 100%.
They went back and they ran the exact same play the very next play. And it was a throw that Caleb Williams should not have thrown that ball, but he's so damn good. There were a couple of those where he had no business throwing the football, but he is so good, he made that throw. And defense, you can do nothing about it. Outside of just a handful of throws, I thought Oregon did a phenomenal job. against Caleb Williams in that offense.
I think this is the best the defense has played because everyone's going to look at the Notre Dame game and they're going to go, well, Notre Dame created 3 turnovers.
Yeah.
You go back and you watch those. It's Caleb Williams overthrowing a wide open tight end that gets the ball right to his safety. And then it's pressure in his face, and he starts trying to force things into 2 and 3-man coverages on one guy, right? Yep. So when I look at this Oregon game, well, they only created the 1 turnover, should have had the second fumble if a USC O-lineman isn't paying attention, jumps right on it. They had the best game plan because they stopped him without having to get the turnovers, right? They had D linemen who were rushing the passer but staying in their lane. I thought Brandon Dorlus, and not enough people are going to talk about it, he had the best game because he was getting that pressure up the middle. When teams have gotten pressure on USC, it's because they beat the tackles. Well, Caleb can step underneath and then get back outside. When Dorlus was pressing that pocket forward and they had pressure off the outside edges, Caleb couldn't step up. He had to try and do that loop where he bounces outside. And he's such an athlete that there are going to be times where he beats guys just because he's that much of a freak. But for the most part, they were able to pressure him. They had 3 sacks. They had another 4 or 5 QB hurries. He never felt comfortable in the pocket all game long.
They got his shots on him.
And they played fantastic. The weird thing is I think this is the first week where another team has had more defensive players get tackles than Oregon. Oregon usually has 20 guys with tackles. In this game, it only ends up being, I'm trying to do quick math, but it only ends up being 15 dudes.
Quick math never works on this.
No, but USC had, 4 or 5 more guys with tackles. That's a very different game plan than what Lanning usually does. I think he went with the guys he trusts the most and said, we need this much out of you. We need extra this week. And they delivered.
I'll say to that pressure that Dorlus put on the quarterback, they did a really good job. Casey Rogers, Jordan Birch too, on kind of that vice grip that they were doing but what I thought was really impressive was they were bringing linebackers off the edge, and a linebacker and a defensive end, completely different rush technique. And I thought they did a really good job of staying disciplined too, because if you're just going to bring your ends straight up field, Caleb Williams is too good. Lincoln Riley's too good of a play caller. They are going to figure that out real quick. But the way that they were, pinching down with the ends and then bringing a linebacker around off the edge, it gave USC headaches to the point where you saw them doing quarter rolls and half rollouts because they didn't trust their protection.
Yeah, they had to get him moving. And if he's already moving, he can then run too. That was the only way to slow down the pass rush. They even tried screens, and screens weren't working because Oregon was so disciplined. It was an all-around impressive performance from that Oregon defense, and it might be a bit of a leap.
Yeah.
But you're starting to see that Georgia defense that Lanning ran 2 years ago, where there's a bunch of dudes and they have a bunch of different ways of creating pressure and creating creating havoc on quarterbacks. You're starting to see that rear its head with this Oregon team.
Final score not indicative of kind of how that game played out. And, there's a lot of other points that we can get to on that game, including Bo Nix, now the Heisman frontrunner.
Yeah,
coming out of that one.
He should be
in some betting markets. And then what did USC's defense do to change? Because I thought offensively for the Ducks, they came in with a game plan that we all thought it would be. And they had to adjust pretty quickly because USC's different defense was not the same defense we saw a week ago or throughout the course of this season. So we still have a lot that we need to get to as far as Oregon and SC is related. But there's another game right here in the state of Oregon, and when you're heading into the most pivotal part of your season, you have got to be as impressive as the Beavers were. Right now is Rust with SportsCenter.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a SportsCenter update on 1080 The Fan.
This update brought to you by A&E Plumbing, Heating, and Air, serving Portland, Southwest Washington, and the Gorge. Online at aneheatingandcooling.com. It's hard to stop a train. First on The Fan, Josh Allen and the Bills hosting Russell Wilson and the Broncos on Monday Night Football, wrapping up Week 10 in the NFL. The Bills are 7.5-point favorites. That's a 5:15 kick on ABC and ESPN. In college ball, Mississippi State has fired Zach Arnett, who was promoted to head coach after the passing of Mike Leach last December. San Diego State head coach Brady Hoke announced he is retiring at the end of the season, but the San Diego Union Tribune reports Hoke is being forced out. And Arizona State Athletic Director Ray Anderson announced he is resigning effective immediately. Trailblazers are off today, heading to Salt Lake City to face the Jazz tomorrow night for an in-season tournament game as they wrap up their 3-game trip. The team announced today that Ryan Rupert and Ish Wainwright have been assigned to the Rip City Remix. ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski reporting the Nuggets and head coach Michael Malone have agreed to a multi-year extension that'll make him one of the league's highest-paid coaches and lock him up through the 2026-27 season. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Russ at the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Get in the game at Spirit Mountain Casino. Watch and wager on all the pro and college action. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
Your favorite fan shows are on YouTube. Mash the subscribe button and like us for live streaming video and 1080 The Fan on demand.
He's our special boy. We love him.
Got a Seinfeld shirt on right now.
It's a great Seinfeld shirt too, where they don't have to pay the royalties because it's vague enough.
It's just vague enough.
No faces.
No faces.
No face, no
faces.
case.
But
The puffy
when
shirt.
we were on Friday and when Danny was here and you were producing, we talked about this Oregon State game, and the one thing that I said was, this is a game where you just run the damn ball on Stanford. Get out of that game as healthy as you possibly can, because there is nothing more important than the next 2 weeks. You got Washington, you've got Oregon. This is where the Beavers season is going to be defined, is these next 2 games. And so getting out of that healthy was of the utmost importance. What Oregon State did was they just dropped the damn hammer on Stanford and made them quit.
Which is crazy because they lost Jack last year.
Yeah, the Jack Hammer. Yeah,
That's right.
I see what you did there.
I got jokes.
I see what you did there.
I got you. Yeah,
Jack Coletto.
I'm impressed, honestly, because when you look at the stats, they don't blow you out of the water, right? I mean, the Martinez stat line's pretty insane. 15 for 146. That's a pretty impressive stat line. But everyone else, it's just doing your job.
Yeah.
Hey, DJU, go out there, find a couple open wide receivers, keep Stanford honest, have a high completion percentage, look efficient. Aiden Childs, when you get your opportunities, take advantage of them. He was able to show off his ability to run a little bit, but also like beat this Stanford team through the air. But the most important thing was end this game early.
Yep.
You're up 34-10 at halftime.
Yeah.
That
Well,
game's done.
And look, you look at it and Damian Martinez on the surface, you look at the final box score and you say, hey, that's a good day at the office, right? Like, hey, he went for, 15 carries, 146 and 4 tutties. That is a phenomenal game by any measurement and any metric. But to your point in where you said like early and often, the first quarter, he ended that game.
Yeah.
I mean, he had 6 carries for 81 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. That to me was Oregon State. They didn't play with their food. They were well prepared for a team in
Yep.
Stanford that has thrown a wrinkle and a curveball at every team that they have played this year, and they've done a really good job of it. And it usually takes teams a quarter to adjust, but that was not the case. The Beavs came out, and I know it was 14-7 after one, but the fact of the matter was, this is November. November is when you run your identity.
Right.
And Oregon State, they came into this season knowing that we had a really good offensive line. We have 2 really good running backs, and we are a pound the rock team. November is, if you can run the ball, it is the best tool in your tool belt that you can have. Like, throwing the ball is great, explosives are awesome, but running the ball in November is how you win football games. In Oregon State, it's going to be, Washington's going to pop on that film and go, okay, they're going to try to punch us in the mouth. And I can't wait for this game this weekend. I think it's a shame that College Game Day isn't going, that Big Noon Kick isn't going to be there, but it is what it is.
They had to. They had to not go. You know what
Because
I mean?
the Beavs are going to, the fan base was going to show so much vitriol towards them.
Yes, you're setting yourself up for failure. You have to not go, and you hide behind the fact of like, JMU's a great story.
Well,
They're undefeated. They should get to play at a bowl
no,
game.
they didn't want to get booed.
It's political. I get what they're doing. It's smart.
But Oregon State fans, on that same note and in that same vein, you can't be upset that you don't get the chance to boo them when you're MFing them all season long, and then you're like, hey, why didn't you come to us?
Right. 100%. You can't sit there and be like, I want my cake and eat it too. You don't get to boo and yell and scream that, they killed your conference and they're the reason that you might have to play in the Mountain West, and then also get them to come and then be like, that's right, you have to show up. Look, it's going to be a great game. Russ was saying already that the line opened at 2.5 for UW. It's already Oregon State at -1. The way Oregon State plays,
Maybe they think UW is going to drop the ball.
dude. Ayo.
Oh, did you see what I did there? You see what I did there?
They might though, because it's one of those situations where styles make fights, and Oregon State plays a style and a brand where they punch you in the mouth on defense. And we saw that when Oregon punched UW in the mouth on offense, they struggled. They really struggled. And they came out of that game beat up, and it affected them for 2 or 3 games down the road. And then offensively, where does UW struggle? They struggle when they're trying to stop the ball, right? Their defense struggles. What does Oregon State do well? They run the football, and that's going to take
RTDB, run the damn ball.
right, and that's going to take a lot of time off the clock. That's going to keep Michael Penix on the sidelines. This might be one of those situations where Oregon State is the complete antithesis of UW, and that's going to play completely to their advantage.
Well, absolutely. If you looked at what the fits that Utah gave them just this past week up at Husky Stadium, and this is another thing too. When you play back-to-back physical games,
Yeah,
at this point in the season, like this is remember the old Stanford effect?
right.
You get the Stanford effect after playing UW. Has got Utah and Oregon State in 2 weeks in a row, man. They're going to be beat up after that Utah game.
Right. Well, and Utah, I do not think has nearly the offensive firepower
Well, you
or
have a functional quarterback.
Right.
You have DJ is a functional quarterback and explosive receivers on the outside that you have got to respect.
And you have to pay attention because every once in a while, Aiden Childs is going to get a drive every 3 or 4 series. And Utah gave that UW team all they could handle, right?
Yep.
So what's Oregon State going to be able to do? I think this game is going to come down to who has the ball last. And frankly, if Oregon State can get on UW early, they might be in a lot of trouble the way that Oregon State runs the football.
And just the physicality and the unrelenting ability to run the football. And plus, when you're at home, that ratchets things up another level because it's hard to win on the road.
Right.
I say this every week, and I know I sound like a broken record, but look, it is the biggest truth that you have in college football. Winning on the road is hard. You go into a hostile environment, it's difficult. You can get too amped up, and especially when you add on top of that expectations that are heaped on both of these teams where there is zero margin for error for either one of these programs right now. I mean, you have zero wiggle room. For Washington, it is you got to stay relevant in the college football playoff hunt. And for Oregon State, it is you have to win your final 2 games if you're going to want a seat at the table in the Pac-12 championship game.
Yep.
If you want to go out in the Pac-12 the way you think you can, you have got to win your final 2 games. And look, I'm excited. I'm excited for that game this weekend. Look, it's Monday. We're already talking about
We've already looked ahead.
But it really is with the way that Oregon State handled Stanford. It was almost like in the second half they were already having their eye on. All right, now we got UW. Now, and you put up a 60 spot. You put up a
As
60
a running
spot.
team.
You're going okay. That was a statement by Jonathan Smith and company, and I love it right at this point in the
Well,
year.
and this is where we saw Oregon State surge last year because they're built the exact same way. And it's smart by Jonathan Smith. What does he want to be built by? He wants to be built with a tough physical team that runs the football well. And you have to do it at a school like Oregon State where, like, let's just call a spade a spade. You're not going to get the same recruits that Oregon, UW, USC, UCLA are going to get. So you have to be more physical. It's the same thing that Whittingham did over at Utah. And now you're getting UW after they've already gotten beat up by Utah.
Yeah.
I really like the way that plays out for them. And then, to be honest, if I'm Oregon, I would be more scared of Oregon State than I would be of seeing UW again in the Pac-12 championship. Now, you have a long way to go. You got to win 2 games to get to that UW game. But I just think that the way that Oregon State plays in this area of the country where it's rainy, it's wet, it's muddy. It won't be because they're on turf. But you get what I'm saying, right? It's harder to throw the football. They play a style at the end of the year where you're already beat up and banged up, where they are going to go after those bruises. They're going to go after those nicks, those scrapes. They want to beat you up physically. It's something that not a lot of teams are going to be able to handle late in November. You just aren't.
Yeah. It's going to be a fun one. When UW goes to Reser, I think that you have Michael Penix, who his explosiveness in that offense, look, they went toe-to-toe, and they had 2 home games. They had Washington had Oregon and Utah at home. And they took shots to the chin in both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they withstood those shots to the chin. Taking that on the road is going to be the impressive part. Look, they're 10-0, man.
Yeah.
Like 10-0. We do not give credit for how hard it is to go undefeated because we get just so lost in the sauce of every year there's a couple of teams that do it, right?
Right.
And it's usually the same old usual suspects, right? It's Alabama, it's now Georgia, it's Clemson, it's Ohio State or Michigan, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to be 10-0.
Right.
And Washington has had to get creative with it. They've gotten threatened a few times, and now if they want to hold it together, they got 2 left in the regular season. They got Oregon State, and then they have an Apple Cup meeting with Washington State. And you don't need any more motivation than that, man, because they got 2 really tough tests. Because I know, and we have to talk about Washington State falling apart this year at some point, because it has been a fall apart year.
It's one of the weirder stories of college football, but no one's going to pay attention to it because it's the team out in Pullman.
But they will be ready come Apple Cup week. Come Thanksgiving weekend, they're going to be ready for that game.
You would hope, because it really does seem like a lot of those teams have quit. But I do want to say this about this UW team, because we are getting called out on the Vancouver Ford text line. Seems to be a little anti-UW. Not anti-UW. I'm just saying this is a different UW team than the 2016 UW team, right? Everyone remembers that team because they were kind of fraudulent. They had a bunch of
anti-UW about what we've been talking about.
Well, look, we've been saying that Oregon State might beat them in, well, what? Oregon's an 8.5-point favorite if they played again.
That's wild to think about.
Well, when you look at the numbers, Oregon, aside from a missed field goal and not getting 3 4th downs, has looked like the better team than UW. Yeah. And if they play on a neutral site, that makes sense. And honestly, the way that Oregon State plays, it makes sense that they might be favored right now over UW, the way they just beat you up. But this is a different UW team than the team in 2016 led by Jake Browning. That team felt very fraudulent. You had a lot of weird, sneak out wins. That's not what this UW team is. This UW team is a legit top 5 team in the country. We're just saying that the matchup of going up against Oregon State, a team that runs the ball and is going to take out the 2 best attributes that this UW team has, which is ZTF and Trice at your defensive end positions, at least for your defense. They're going to nullify them because of the way that they run the football, and then they're going to be built off play action pass in the pass game, so those guys aren't going to be able to rush as hard. I think that makes for a really good matchup and favors Oregon State.
Yeah. Well, no. UW's good. It's really hard to win, but at the same time, right now they're underdogs here when they head down to Corvallis, according to Vegas. 503-864-6326. That is the Vancouver Ford text line, how you can be a part of the show. Also, YouTube comments, youtube.com/1080am The Fan. It's where you can watch all of the Fan shows. This is Danny and Dusty. with you.
Every time they get the record low over under total, that's a fun bet.
No.
That's a funny bet. And the fact that it's gone over 3 times.
No, it's gone under 3 times.
Thank you. Under.
Why
I
are
keep
you
losing.
betting the over? BigWellBets.com.
Because it's funny. 28.5 points is a funny total to have in a college football game.
Like funny haha?
yeah.
Like I'm here to amuse you?
funny how?
It's funny to me.
Funny like a clown?
Yes. Like the ability to look at a game and go, will these two Power 5 college football teams be able to each score 14 points total and then get me to that over? That's a fun bet to make. I enjoy making that bet. I just keep losing.
You want to know something that is, it will probably shock you. It will be shocking to you.
They already fired their OC because he wasn't going to reach his point total?
No, that's not surprising. They are not even the lowest scoring team in the Big Ten.
No. Northwestern? Is it Northwest or Maryland maybe?
No.
Who sucks that's in the Big Ten West? Well, Illinois?
Michigan State.
Michigan State. What are they averaging over there?
16.7 points per game.
You're telling me Iowa averages more than 16 points a game?
Got
I would
him
have
at-
thought you would have told me 10.
I got them at 18.8, my man. Good for 123rd out of 133 teams in the country.
123rd.
Yeah.
And their
There is
defense is unreal.
there's a Pac-12 team that is scoring fewer points than they are too.
Stanford.
Uh-uh.
Not Stanford?
Nope. Stanford is 110th at 20.9. It is Arizona State, man. Like we mock this Iowa team because it's comical that their offensive coordinator quite literally had it in his contract that you need to score 25 points a game this season or you're gonna get fired.
And he was nowhere close. And
No.
his dad was the one firing him.
But think of it in these terms. I think a lot of programs would love to be where Iowa's at, 8-2.
They're good. They clinched a share for the Big Ten West, and honestly, they should be 9-1.
Yeah.
If you take away that whatever that it wasn't, he didn't signal a fair catch. He just said get away from the ball. That is a normal arm movement for that punt returner to make. If you take away that bogus call right there, they're 9-1.
See, but here's the problem, like with Iowa in their offense and why it's so disgusting.
Their quarterback is fat.
Oh, it seems like a ricochet shot. Like, that's unfair. What are you fat shaming for?
He's fat. He is overweight. He's like 280. They have smaller left guards.
Yeah. All right.
He's the size of Jason Kelsey.
When they play their next game, it will be I guess they scored 22 this week against Rutgers, but they went a month. They went 3 consecutive games where they scored 15, 10, and 10, right? Like, they go through these long stretches where you go, how in the world can you be this bad?
And they're not against like good defenses.
Yeah.
It's like Minnesota,
Yeah.
Illinois, Northwestern.
Like, Arizona State is sneaky. Like, they score fewer points on the season than Iowa does. But it's more sneaky when they slide in a 38-point game in between 7 and 3. You know,
that's true. That's true. But to be fair to Arizona State, they're on their 4th string QB.
Yeah.
Iowa's still on their starter.
Second string.
Oh, that's right,
string.
because they got him from
Cade
the offensive line group.
Cade McNamara got hurt.
You're right.
What again with the fat shaming?
I'm not fat shaming
Will Ortner
him.
gets
He needs to lose
former offensive
weight or play
lineman.
O-line.
Former offensive lineman. All of a sudden he has this glow up, gets skinny, and his hair falls out, and he looks better with a bald head, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden you get this glow up, and now you're fat shaming people.
As a recovering fat man, I think I should be allowed to do this. Also, if he didn't suck and would hit more overs for me, then I would not be fat shaming him.
Yeah. All right. There you go.
Find the open receiver. It's not that hard. Or start running yourself.
Throw it to the open guy. That's Ortner's.
Run the
Big
touchdown
ticket right
play.
there.
Run the touchdown play. They never run the touchdown play.
The touchdown play is unstoppable.
It's not in their offense.
All right. Let's go. Hour number 2. We've got our worst day on the web, which is a parachute made of money.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Where is this parachute made of money?
Well, College Station, Texas is where it's at.
Oh.
But where we start hour number 2 is Michigan. Yeah, their head coach gets suspended in flight en route to a state college, Pennsylvania. And I think, are they laying it on a little bit too thick? Danny and Dusty, Ortner and Dusty, edition on the Fan. They are not optimistic about the results, according to my source.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, that's not good.
Well, I mean, he hasn't had the MRI yet, but they're not optimistic about what it will be once
Well,
they do have it.
I don't know. I'm gonna be honest. He's had a lot of MRIs. I feel like he is as
He
close
would
to an
know.
expert as you can get.
Him's a pro. Him's a pro. He knows. He knows, man. So, serious note. Like we were out there talking. We're like, hey, two things can be true here. It can be serious, and I do feel bad. Now, popping a hammy is never a good thing.
No.
I tore my hamstring once.
Same.
Never the same. But
Still hurts.
it can also be hilarious.
Hamstring pulls are funny.
I mean, and when you get it at a football game that you're not participating in, it's kind of even funnier.
Because you bent down to stretch.
It's
yes.
serious and funny. Like,
Yes.
both things can be true, but I'm hoping that he feels a little bit better.
Like getting a concussion.
and he is feeling a little bit better right now.
Right. Well, that's good. Like getting a concussion is serious. But if it's because you ran into a pole while you were trying to escape someone while you were playing capture the flag, that's objectively funny, is what I've been told
It's what you've been told.
from people who
That
laughed at me.
sounds very specific. Yeah.
Mhm. This is a
That's how I broke my nose.
oddly specific story, Will. Playing capture the flag.
Playing
You got
Playing
concussed
capture the flag.
and a broken nose.
well, back then they didn't really test for concussions.
No,
I was only like what, second grade, third grade. But yeah,
Oh.
no, I busted up my nose pretty good.
Good for you. All right, hour number 2, we start with a game that sounds very familiar. A 9-point margin of victory in a game that was not nearly as close as the score would indicate. Michigan absolutely embarrassed Penn State.
Yeah, I mean they didn't throw the ball in the second half because they didn't have to.
They went soul snatching, and when you run the ball 32 times in a row, like B fans take note. They took what Oregon State did to Oregon last year in the Civil War, and they said times 2. And
Yes.
we're going to go ahead
Yes.
and the only pass attempts that they had were nullified by penalties. So they literally had no pass attempts in the second half on record because there was penalty yardage on when they did throw. It was the most Jim Harbaugh game that you could have, and Jim Harbaugh was suspended on Friday. And
It's a witch hunt.
I don't think that is necessarily like false. Like
I'm being facetious.
but I think that like they are laying it on way too thick.
Oh, 100%. Like you would have thought the man died. Like
Well-
Jim Harbaugh got up into the airplane, died on the flight, and then they were
Wait, he didn't?
doing all these things to save him.
Wait, he didn't do that?
We're playing this year in honor of Saban or in
Right,
honor
Harbaugh.
of Harbaugh. Whatever.
Yeah.
Same.
Well, I mean, it was kind of a weird day to begin with. Like, I think that they're laying it on thick and way too thick, but I think that everything is intentional in what they're doing, and it's actually really smart what they're doing.
They're getting a lot of people on their side.
Yeah, and they have a lot of people with big voices too, and they're using every single one of them. I saw Charles Woodson on the what was it, the Big Noon Kick pregame show.
Yeah.
He dropped this is BS, and he said this is BS.
Yeah.
in it, right? Sharon Moore, the interim head coach after the game, he went viral because I mean they took like Ronald Reagan played the Gipper, and that's the famous speech is Newt Rockney's "Win one for the Gipper," right? And it was a guy who was on his deathbed, and Notre Dame went out and they won that game for the Gipper, right? Jim Harbaugh's not dead.
Very
He's-
much alive.
He is suspended.
Kind of.
He is suspended maybe for just one game, okay?
He's suspended from Saturdays.
But this is on the heels of serving a 3-game suspension earlier this season, having another coach. Remember, and we get lost in all this. Do you remember that there is a coach that got fired for hacking into like we still don't know what that is, but apparently the FBI is kicking the tires around whatever this assistant coach was doing on campus before.
He's just hacking into stuff.
You got the Cheeseburger Gate where they downplayed the whole cheeseburger thing, but it was a NCAA rule that they know that they were breaking and willingly did it, right? So, like, they're like, how dare they suspend them for the first 3 games where you're playing nobodies in the
Right.
first 3 weeks? And then they have this situation where he's the head coach. He's being held responsible for what was going on in the program, yet here's the interim head coach after the game.
I want to thank the Lord. I want to thank Coach Harbaugh. Love you, man. Love the shit out of you, man. Did this for you. For this university, the president, our AD, we got the best players, best university, best alumni in the country. Love you guys. These guys right here, man. These guys did it. These guys did it, man. Talk to him, man. Love you.
Is this me leaving the bar on Friday night? Because that's what it sounds like. I love you guys. You guys are my best friends. That also sounds like me after the bar on Friday night.
Like chunk.
Yeah.
But this is like when you talk about laying it on thick, man. This is what I mean. Like that game obviously meant a lot to him, and in that I don't want to take away from, because he's a guy that it's a damn good thing he was suspended. Harbaugh was suspended for the first 3 games of the year, because remember, I thought Harbaugh did a really cool thing. For those first 3 games, remember, he allocated each game to his offensive coordinator, his defensive coordinator, and then his special teams coordinator, and I think his son were like the co-head coaches for one game.
Right. He made sure everyone got, a seat at the table.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then for this game, he was like, hey, we're just going to do the same damn thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go more. You're the guy. This is a big spot for him.
Right.
And he won that game. And there's no doubt in my mind that he does love Jim Harbaugh. He you can hear it. You can see it. Like Harbaugh means a lot to him.
100%. The
And-
players do too, clearly.
Look, yeah. And
The way he grabbed Blake Corum, I would have thought it was his kid.
yeah.
Like, he loves those players.
And I appreciate that. Like that is something that I think that is cool. But then the wearing Michigan versus everybody stuff heading in. What are we doing here? I heard there was Amani Toomer went on one of the national shows, and Amani Toomer was sitting there and comparing it to the Jerry Sandusky Penn State thing. Is like nobody suspended them during the season. It's like, because it didn't happen during the season. And somebody went to prison for the rest of his life because of that.
Yeah.
Like, they tore down the statue of Joe Paterno. Joe Paterno lost his job and died like a month later. Like, how are you going to sit here and be like, nothing, this is so, they're treating us like they were way easier on Penn State. No, they weren't.
And the setup for that Toomer interview, too, was just kind of ridiculous as well. They're like, coming up, we've got former Michigan receiver Amani Toomer. Amani, do you think that Michigan is being treated unfairly?
And look, for
Welcome to the grift.
Michigan fans that are out there, I get why you do feel like you're being treated unfairly, because this is unprecedented. But everything about this whole thing is unprecedented. In the Big Ten, you also are beholden. The Big Ten commissioner, Tony Petitti, he is also beholden to every other institution in that conference,
Right.
not just Michigan. So I understand that you feel like you're like, hey, they've never done this before. Well, guess what? We haven't seen anything like this before in college football.
No one's had an assistant coach / vacuum salesman sit on sidelines with glasses that have,
a recording device in 'em.
devices.
Yeah.
My thing about it, I think a couple things can be true. Do I think to a degree they are getting railroaded, right? Like, you have not gone all the way through the completion of this investigation. I think it is a little bit early to be suspending him. I think that the Big Ten is suspending him because they know if he wins a title, he's out. I think Jim Harbaugh, if he wins a title, he's back into the NFL because he wants to try and win a Super Bowl so that John can't have that over him for the rest of his life, right? Like, this dude is an insane person. That's what he wants to do. At the same time, to sit here and act like you are just getting completely railroaded, like Jim Harbaugh is now dead. If you didn't know, you would think that Jim Harbaugh died this Saturday and they played that game for him. It's way, way too much. And you're going to become the bad boys. And it is going to become Michigan versus everybody, because everybody is going to hate your guts because you're just sitting there and trying to whine and cry and play the victim when you're not the victim. You might just be getting punished a little bit earlier than you should have.
Look, I know this playbook. I've been there. I've played it. Like my
Twice.
2 favorite teams are the Patriots and the Astros. And guess what?
You're an expert at video cheating.
Look, one of my best friends growing up, he's always been a Michigan fan, and he's also a Patriots fan because he jumped on when Tom Brady
Is it
went
Dave
to New England.
Portnoy?
No, but I was texting and I was like, hey, like, you want to come be an Astros fan now? You can get the Holy Trinity.
Right.
We can do this thing. But I know this out of the playbook, and I know that this is like the frustrating part about it too, is that what Michigan is saying, this is the truth about it. They're good enough to win without it, without the sign stealing, right?
Right. They don't need it.
Did it help them? Absolutely. Were they good before it? Yeah. Will they be good after it? Uh-huh.
Mhm.
You didn't need it. And so they're saying it didn't even really make a difference. Do you see what we did? We were winning by 35 points a game. Now we're winning by 38 points a game. It's like, okay, you guys are missing the point. I get it. I know where the playbook is.
Mhm.
I've seen the playbook. I've read it. We've done it.
You've been on these airways and done the playbook.
I've done it. And it is one of the things that I've never like defended the Astros cheating because you get caught, you get caught.
Right.
You can sit there though and you can say like, no, my frustration is with they didn't need to do it to win. And this year, it's no more clear than ever. Like you didn't need to do it. But they had somebody who went way over the line.
Mhm.
And you got to own it, man. You have to own it. And it's going to take a little bit away from it if they do win a championship this year because it's going to cloud it.
Right.
You know? Then
The irony is
that sucks for
it-
them.
it
But I know what it
probab-
feels like.
it probably wouldn't be as big of a deal if they were just like, yeah, we cheated. We thought like that wasn't to us. That didn't seem like crossing the line.
But the whole Harbaugh is being treated unfairly. No, he's in charge of the program. And
He knows
if he
what he's
didn't
doing.
know, I think there is a plausible explanation that he didn't know the severity of it. But that doesn't
There's
mean
no
he
way he-
shouldn't be held accountable for it because it's his program.
There's no way he didn't know the severity of it. Jim Harbaugh
I think
knows
it's plausible. but
everything that is
not
going on. in
likely.
that. He knows everything that is going on in that program. He is a control
Yeah.
freak. It's what makes him great. There's no way he didn't know.
Oh, and he is so competitive.
He just didn't think he'd get caught. And here's the thing: you didn't need it anyway.
You know, you said Michigan versus everybody, and this is where it's like Michigan is taking a page out of the political playbook because Harbaugh
welcome to the
is
grift.
going the other way. That is next on The Fan.
Seahawks football is on the Fan.
him on Saturday wearing Michigan versus everybody beanies and T-shirts. It's amazing how they had that merch ready to go.
I think they've been selling it before.
Oh, weird.
I think Michigan versus
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
has been kind of
Yeah.
a thing.
Yeah, the victims kind of what they've kind of leaned into here. Well, Jim Harbaugh is going the complete opposite direction from Michigan versus everybody.
And watching it from where I was watching, I was like, how could you not see this? These players. I mean, Blake Corum with the nose bloodied, and the emotion of the team, the perseverance, and then the stalwartness of these guys. I mean, yeah, watching, I would have to say, everybody. It's got to be America's team. It's got to be America's team. America loves a team that beats the odds, beats the adversity, overcomes what the naysayers and critics, so-called experts think. That's my favorite kind of team. And yeah, watching it from that view on the television, it was finally people get to see what I see every day, in these players and these coaches. America.
He might be right about this, because if there's they may be America's team, because if there's a team that America hates more than Michigan, it's Dallas Cowboys. So he might be onto something there. America. I just love how he was just like, America's team. America. It's like he was about to just tell us 9/11.
It's like, what can I
America.
say that will get everyone on my side?
Terrorism. It's just like,
Watch me hit this drive.
now watch me hit this draft. Just wham, piped it. I love that Michigan is going down both roads here, though. They are playing both the victim and the most loved team, and they're covering all their bases. It is a brilliant PR full court press that they've thrown out at everybody, because they are winning some people over. And there are people that do believe it, because there is an element of hey, why don't you wait till all the facts are out there and you
Right.
guys have everything? But
100%.
I'm here to tell you, though, if you're just listening to that part of that argument and that's winning you over, the Big Ten didn't just do this willy-nilly. The Big Ten may suspend Jim Harbaugh now, but that doesn't mean that they don't have anything. And it doesn't mean that they don't have facts out there. And I know Michigan's plays well, we have proof that other people have stolen our signs. And by the way, sharing a document between, Rutgers, Purdue, and Ohio State
Right.
on their signs before the... Okay, so that may be a gray area violation of the sportsmanship rule in the Big Ten bylaws. This was a black and white violation of NCAA rules, which isn't the first NCAA rules broken this year.
Right, 100%. But it's also they're smart because they realize that they can play this to people who don't understand, where they can go, so what? Sign stealing is what everybody does. We just didn't know where the line was. We took it a little bit farther. Everyone steals signs. Look, they stole our signs. We stole ours. And then you can also do the other argument of, well, if you knew we stole your signs, just change your signs.
Yeah.
Have a decoy out there. So what they're getting caught for doing, they can spin it in so many different ways and at so many different times to where they're going to catch a lot of people where you hear one thing and you're because there's a dumb part of my brain, super dumb, where it's well, if they do know that they have your signs, well, who cares? I don't care if you know what play I'm running. I am just going to beat you because I'm better than you. And that's an easy way to trick a lot of people, because I'm not a smart person, but at least I can hear that and go, well, that's a dumb argument from the dumb part of my brain. There's a lot of people that will just be yeah, that makes sense. Who cares if you know what they're doing? Still beat them. Be better than them. Switch your plays. Switch your decoys. Michigan is smart, man. We're going to have a PR class in 20 years when I finally have children going to college. And they're going to be do you remember back in 2023, all of the different interviews that Jim Harbaugh did and how he was able to get out of his sign stealing saga? And it's going to be yeah, he mentioned America a lot. He said he was a victim. Then he said he was the best team and everyone should root for him. He had a coach cry, and he had Dave Portnoy go absolutely bonkers online until people agreed with him all the time.
America.
Fart hammer.
Oh,
Yeah. We got them both in there.
he's got Fart Hammer and America.
Yeah.
America's Fart Hammer?
Yeah. Well, and well
get
played,
nuts.
Michigan. Wait, what'd you say?
Let's get nuts.
Let's get nuts, Horvat.
Let's
Um,
get nuts.
Michigan is a really damn good football team, though.
Yeah,
And people are just swearing all over television because they're good and they're playing the victim.
well, if you win enough games, you get to cuss. Everybody knows that.
I don't think that's true.
That's an FCC. It's in the bylaws.
Don't know if that's
For
true.
every 10 wins you have, you get one F-bomb.
Yeah,
it's in there.
I love Charles Woodson just dropped BS, and then you had an F-bomb and an S-bomb in the post-game interview. It's like, cameras here. Nope, don't care.
Doesn't care.
I'm on board with that.
Dude, it was the ultimate,
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday night, 1 o'clock, time to head home from the bar.
Yeah.
It
I love
was
you,
the
man.
ultimate, I love this guy right here. You're
Yeah.
crying. You're grabbing people, holding them tight, giving unwanted hugs for no
Oh.
reason. It's beautiful.
Yeah, you should watch yourself on that one.
I don't
Little
hug people.
unwanted.
Not a hugger.
unwanted. You're not a hugger.
Not a hugger.
All right. I'm a hugger. All right, let's get to our worst day on the web. Parachutes made of money. Next. First is Rust with SportsCenter.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
Your new floors are in stock and ready to install at PG Long, your Northwest flooring experts, pglongllc.com. First on the Fan, Josh Allen and the Bills hosting Russell Wilson and the Broncos on Monday Night Football to wrap up Week 10 in the NFL. The Bills 7.5-point favorites. That's a 5:15 kick on ABC and ESPN. Over in college ball, Oregon quarterback Bo Nix named Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Week. Mississippi State has fired Zach Arnett, who was promoted to head coach after the passing of Mike Leach last December. San Diego State head coach Brady Hoke announced he is retiring at the end of the season, but the San Diego Union Tribune reports Hoke is being forced out. Arizona State athletic director Ray Anderson announced he is resigning, effective immediately. Over in the association, the Trailblazers off today, heading to Salt Lake City to face the Jazz tomorrow night for an in-season tournament game as they wrap up their 3-game trip. The team announced today that Ryan Rupert and Ish Wainwright have been assigned to the Rip City Remix. ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski reporting the Nuggets and head coach Michael Malone have agreed to a multi-year extension that will make him one of the league's highest-paid coaches and lock him up through the 2026-27 season. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Russ at the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Get in the game at Spirit Mountain Casino. Watch and wager on all the pro and college action. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
The latest Blazers moves and breaking news. Keep it here on your home for all-day Trailblazers coverage. 1080 The Fan. And for today's worst day on the web, with Danny and Dusty on Odyssey and 1080 The Fan.
Man, that sucks.
It's been long suspected, but now it is finally a realization. Yesterday, early in the day, we found out Jimbo Fisher, he gone.
Bye-bye.
Canned at Texas A&M. Texas A&M will pay Jimbo Fisher $77 million for him not to coach
To go away.
the Aggies football team. $77 million. Think about that.
And 19 of it by like the end of the year, I think.
Yeah, within the next 60 days, Texas A&M has to give him $19.3 million.
Oh my God.
Okay. And then after that, they will pay out $7.2 million annually through 2031.
I saw a tweet that made me laugh really hard. At the game on Saturday, they had a donor come in and donate, like, I'm sure it was a group of donors, but it was $100 million on the big check.
Yeah.
They're like, imagine, coaching a game and then getting fired while at that game they have the donation of your salary to
they're
get
just
rid
like,
of you.
We are going to offset this right now. And that's the thing about this Texas A&M program is that they have got an ungodly amount of money.
Especially
at their disposal.
as oil booms, the more and more that oil and gas prices raise, the more money they got.
Yeah. And it is, A&M is cultish. Like they are very tight-knit group. They give a lot of money back to the program. It is a place where they have no reason to be as mediocre as they are. And really as they have been. I mean,
They have one 10-win season in the last 20 years?
I think it's two. They have two 10-win
Two?
seasons. Kevin Summerlin had one, and then
Johnny Manziel is
Yeah.
is the one 10-win.
and then you go back, and I think it was like early 2000s. I think they had like
They snuck one out
Yeah,
when they were in the
yeah.
Big 12.
maybe Dennis Francione had one or something like that. But it is a program that you would think should be better than they are, because they should be better than they are. But there's this very real kind of cloud that hangs over College Station, and it hung over Austin, Texas as well, is that when you have that many people with that much money, they all want to have a say, and they all pull in different directions. And you have actively at times within your own fan base and boosters, people trying to subvert the head coach because it's not the guy that they wanted. Like that happens at times.
Too many cooks in the kitchen.
And 100%. But you look at A&M and you say, stadium, check. Loyal fan base, check. A competitive conference. You're in the SEC, check.
Unlimited money.
Unlimited money and resources, check. Recruiting hotbed, check.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and a roster right now that is pretty talent rich. They are not good. They had the number one recruiting class in the country a couple of years ago, and should be noted, the man that was in charge of that, Marshall Malchow, now works for Dan Lanning at the University of Oregon. Yeah, and recruiting is gone up, and he's like Lanning's right-hand man. I think his official title is like chief of staff, but he was at A&M before, and he, oh, by the way, he was at Georgia before that.
He's the bag man.
And then, well, no, he's the recruiting. He's the guy that is their director and kind of that chief of staff going around the program. And that is, he went from Georgia, number one recruiting class in the country, A&M, number one recruiting class in the country, and then he comes to Oregon. Like, that's, you see the uptick under Lanning in recruiting. They got some pit bulls that have a track record of it. But Dan Lanning's name was one of the first ones that popped up in this conversation of, all right, if you have a guy who you want a young coach,
right,
who can recruit, who has had immediate success, look no further than one Dan Lanning at Oregon. And there's going to be a lot of names that start popping up. And look, you would like to sit there and be like, hey, don't worry, like Lanning will be at Oregon. No, like you can't say that anymore, because how many times does it happen?
100%. And this, while A&M isn't your traditional blue blood,
No.
they have the one thing that a lot of those blue bloods don't necessarily have, at least not to that extent. And they really do have unlimited money,
They do.
right? And so you're going to get outbid.
Mm-hmm.
And that's with Dan Lanning. That's with DeBoer up at UW.
Yep.
You go through the name Jed Fish at Arizona. You go through the names of these coaches who are doing well at small schools. Jonathan Smith. They are going to have more money than you. So you have to find a way to, pull out those heartstrings, those emotional pulls, maybe find a way to get more money for assistants or better NIL, whatever, to keep some of these guys. Because when you look at that A&M job, I agree with Josh Pate, the late kick guy. He said it is a top tier job.
It
And
is.
I agree with that because of the amount of money and the rabid fan base that you have. Now, you're going to have to deal with too many cooks in the kitchen. But if you get a coach that goes in there and can tell some of these guys to shut up and let me do my job, you might turn that program into a power because it really does seem like it's a sleeping giant.
Yeah, but that's easier said than done. To tell billionaires with the
Right.
ungodly amounts of money to shut up and take a back seat because you know what you're doing.
Right.
That's easier said than done. But look, it would be foolish for Texas A&M not to go after Dan Lanning.
Oh, they should be
Because-
calling everybody not named
Yeah.
Nick Saban or Kirby Smart.
I mean, but I don't think that means that like Lanning will want to go to A&M. We don't know what he's thinking. We don't know how
Oh.
he's thinking. But things that we do know is that Lanning is very big on loyalty, right?
Mhm.
And Lanning has said that, one of the things that he has always appreciated about Oregon is that they gave him the first crack. And they said, hey, we want to make you the head coach here. And they have done right by him.
They keep giving him money. Yep.
But the list is going to be very long for who A&M is targeting. And it's going to be everywhere. Like Dan Campbell's name was out there yesterday. The head coach of the Detroit Lions, who I think he would be a decent head coach in college football because he's the motivator, he's the rah-rah guy. I don't think he wants to deal with recruiting. though.
No, I also think the biggest way to get X followers or interactions is to just who's a good football coach and put their name out there with all
Well,
that.
he is an A&M alum too, so that is where that one's coming from.
Okay, all
but
right.
I think if you're looking at it from what names you will see, Lanning, obviously we've already seen, we should see. I think you will see Mike Elko, who is the former defensive coordinator at A&M. He's now the head coach at Duke, and they're doing a phenomenal job.
Great job.
You mentioned Jed Fish. I would look at Jed Fish
I
and what
would look
he
at
has
Jed
done at
Fish.
Arizona.
Mhm.
Kalen DeBoer up at Washington. Don't think that they shouldn't kick the tires on Kalen DeBoer.
Kingsbury.
You think Cliff Kingsbury, huh?
Well, remember, he was their offensive coordinator down
Mhm.
there during the Johnny Manziel era. He is a high-flying, fast-paced offense, which is where they've had their best success. Do I think it's just them revamping Jimbo, but younger and hotter? Yeah, it's going to be
a
the
repackaging.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Like, if you look at Jimbo Fisher, like, we think of him as this great coach. Jimbo Fisher had 2 great years all wrapped around one quarterback. If you take away those 2 years with that quarterback, yeah, he was a great OC. Yeah, he was a good coach under Nick Saban, but he wasn't this great knockout coach right away. He was at Florida State. He got Jameis Winston early. He won a title. He went to a college football playoff. And then he's had a bunch of winning seasons where he's like right around that 9 to 10 win mark. But when he went to A&M, let's not act like Florida State was that upset when he left. He was starting to lose some of his shine over there too. So I think the big thing for Texas A&M is they're going to now try and go find a coach with some legit star power.
Along those lines, though, in kind of almost running a parallel, but not winning a national championship, a name that has been floated out there, and I don't think that Penn State would be, oh my gosh, the world is falling, is if James Franklin decided he wanted to go back to the SEC again.
Right.
Because after this past weekend, like there are fans of Penn State that are turning on James Franklin for not being able to get over the hump.
He's like 4-16, I think, against Ohio State and Michigan.
Yeah.
Or 4-16 against ranked opponents.
And that's a name that
Huge.
has been kind of on the periphery, floated out there.
Right.
But look,
Text line says Urban Meyer. I bet you
Oh my gosh.
they'd be totally okay with
they could justify Urban Meyer Like they'll be like,
They're
you know
fine
what?
with him
Yeah, we'll
kicking
be
people.
okay.
Yeah, you want to hang out with the co-eds? That's no biggie.
Yeah, okay. Well, this is what we're going to do. And as a Vancouver Ford text line, 503-864-6326 says, watch for transfers coming out of Texas A&M. Yeah, watch for the Texas A&M transfer portal to light up. Because
They did last year, too.
just just a couple of years ago, they had the number 1 recruiting class in the country. And if it's not in talent, they have no shortage of talent there. And that is not the problem, and it won't be the problem at A&M. But with that number 1 recruiting class and Oregon's connection to that number 1 recruiting class, heck, instead of taking that job, Lanning could just go and start plucking all their players out of the portal because there's a pre-existing relationship with at least one member of the Oregon football staff in Malchow. So, I mean, I don't know if that's going to be what the playbook is or what the play is, but man, that is a team that it could be a very quick remedy with the right coach in place in College Station.
I'll tell you what, though, Willie Taggart's available.
He is.
They could go grab him. Think about that.
He is.
You know,
there is.
sent a couple kids to the hospital.
Jeez, he did. That he did.
Well, his strength coach did. I apologize.
Yeah, who he took with him to South Florida too, right? I think he went to.
He was with him at South Florida and took him to Oregon.
South Florida, then he came to Oregon, then he went back with him when he was at
Florida State,
Florida Atlantic.
Florida Atlantic.
Yeah, I think he circled back with him.
Hmm.
Brutal, dude. That's brutal. All right.
You know what? Sometimes you're supposed to pee blood. Oh wait, no, you're not.
You're not. All right,
that's not healthy.
We will have more. The coaching carousel did not stop this weekend. It actually got a rip roar and started. It started with Jimbo, but that's not where it ended. Including when you lose to a guy that gets fired, you're probably gonna get fired as well. Danny Dusty on the Fan. this as well. They are paying $77 million for Jimbo to go away, right? That's a lot of money.
That's pretty tough to get paid $77 million to go hang out somewhere else.
Yeah. You would also have to pay, say in this hypothetical of Dan Lanning, you'd have to pay Dan Lanning to come in and be a head coach.
You'd have to pay his buyout.
And then you'd have to pay his entire staff. But this is where, I mean, we have to remember this, because one thing that when they signed Lanning to an extension, they put his buyout at a pretty big number. Do we remember what that number is?
You got $20 million?
Ooh. Whew. So you're paying.
So Oregon put some security in there, and look, Texas A&M has a ton of money, but it would be $77 million for a guy to go away, and then $20 million just to get him to your campus so you can pay him more money.
So you're gonna pay $100 million plus
before you
between
start
two
paying them
coaches.
annually.
That's insane.
Yeah. So that should give Duck fans a little bit of solace in all of this. But again, like, they've got oil money. And I don't know if you've checked gas prices lately, but oil companies not struggling.
Yeah.
They're
no,
doing just fine right now.
Not at all right now. I'll tell you what though, too. Like if you're a Duck fan, someone texted this in on the Vancouver Ford text line. You know, the next 3 games are huge for Lanning. I don't necessarily disagree with that. You know, if you go out and you take care of business against Arizona State and Oregon State, and you do what needs to get done against UW, you know, that might set things up easier for Lanning to look and stay. It's also going to set him up for another opportunity to go back to the negotiating table and be like, well, hey, I'm hearing things from these other schools. Yeah. And do you, you keep paying the piper, because you have to pay to keep a good coach and to keep a good program going.
I think that, going to the Big Ten also kind of solidifies Oregon in the pecking order too, because you're not in you have everything that you could want as a coach, right? Facilities, you only have to keep like 2 boosters happy.
Right.
You have a tradition. You have a lure for younger recruits, because everybody that they're recruiting, all they've ever known is Oregon being good in their entire lives. Now you have the one thing they had going against them was, well, it's the Pac-12, like they don't go to the playoff very often. They don't win the playoff very often. Well, now you're in the Big Ten.
Well, and the other thing about the Big Ten that people don't really talk about, it's way easier than the SEC. It is way easier to be good. Like the Big Ten is adding 4 teams from the Pac-12. Yeah. I'd make the argument USC, UW, and Oregon really only have to worry about themselves, and you have to worry about Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan. Are you scared about any of those other teams? Do any of those other teams that you look at in the Big Ten at any point go, wow, maybe they could knock us off for a playoff? Maybe a special year with Iowa? Maybe a special year now that Fickle's over at Wisconsin? So your toughest competition, half of those teams you were going to play anyways, and now you're adding in 3 other teams who play a completely different style than you do, a style that I think stylistically you match up well against.
Yeah, they're going to have to learn how to play offense in the Big Ten West.
Right. If they want to keep up, like right now, all you need is 2 or 3 touchdowns, and you're going to win most of your football games in that Big Ten.
All right, we had other firings. Former Oregon defensive coordinator Andy Avalos out at Boise State after almost 3 seasons. He went 22-14. He was 10-4 just last year and named Mountain West Coach of the Year. Life comes at you fast. They're 5-5 this year, and Andy Avalos, he gone.
Bye-bye.
That's brutal. And then also Zach Arnett, he's 4-6 this season at Mississippi State. And when you lose 52-10 to a guy who gets fired, he got fired.
You kind of have to get fired.
Yeah. The replacement for Mike Leach, he didn't last long, so he's out after just 1 year. And then a forced retirement of Brady Hoke, who once maybe fell asleep. He probably fell asleep on this show.
Well, I mean, that's what happens when you're older. You get tired, gotta take naps.
Yeah, they blame the connection on the phone. It was like a click on the phone. It was like, I don't know.
As a 1080p one, it sounds like it was more than just a click.
It sure did. But he's out at San Diego State. Is that a good job?
Maybe. I think if they had gotten into the Pac-12 and the Pac-12 had survived, maybe. Yeah. It's one of those weird jobs, because if anyone picks any team up from the Mountain West, you would think they would be one of the first calls. You're in San Diego. It's a recruiting hotbed. You got your own facilities now. It's getting better.
Well, it's a 12-team playoff helps you tremendously. Like, you don't
Right?
have to be in all you have to be is the highest ranked non-power 5 and conference champion, and you're in.
It's one of the better jobs in the group of 5. I'll tell you that. If it's not the best, it's right up there.
Yeah, and now you're not playing in a stadium that's too big for your fan base.
No.
They have a brand new, smaller, I think it's Snapdragon Stadium down
Yeah,
there.
it's just right. It looks beautiful. Watched an Idaho State game on TV. when they
Why?
play- My cousin plays at Idaho State.
Oh, okay.
Shout out Bengals.
Oh, I thought you were gonna give your cousin a shout out. We'll give
He's
your
not
cousin a shout out.
listening. Adam Watts, shout out.
All right.
Number 80.
Russ, you want to shout out your cousins? You got a cousin you want to shout out?
I think I'm good.
All right, cool. Wow. Russ' cousins out there just like listening, going, what the hell, man? All right.
It is a good stadium. I think it's a good job. I think it's better than the Boise State job.
Yeah, right now.
It's way easier to get recruits to San Diego than to Boise.
I would say so too. I would say so. All right, that's hour number 2 in the books. Hour number 3, we have a resolution to a controversy in the Pac-12 earlier this season. Has finally reached its conclusion, we believe. But where we got to start the third hour of this program, Oregon wipes the floor with USC through the air, not the way that we were thinking. Not the way we were thinking that game would play out. What did change with USC's defense? Danny and Dusty on the Fan. Come on, hit me with it.
What? Holla at your boy?
There it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Holla
yep.
at your boy.
That's how he started the show. If you missed any of this radio program, you can find it on the Service Patriots podcast at 1080thefan.com or right there in your Odyssey app. Service Patriots, your home comfort solution for all your heating and air conditioning needs. Check out the latest special offers for our listeners at servicepatriots.com/thefan. That's servicepatriots.com/thefan. You notice anything different that USC did defensively against Oregon? They had Sean Nua, Brian Odom, co-defensive coordinators after firing Alex Grinch last week. You notice the major difference in USC's defense?
I saw two things.
Mm-hmm.
I saw they played a lot more base defense. They weren't bringing a lot of blitzes. There weren't a lot of twists, stuff like that. And then second thing I saw is that in the first quarter, they thought it would be better to not cover Troy Franklin and Tez Johnson.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one thing where you can look at. They simplified it for sure. They simplified it.
They went kiss,
And
just like Cowherd.
and you what?
Well, Cowherd had a whole thing in his last hour.
Keep it
I was
simple,
listening.
stupid.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Well, what they didn't bring like blitzes of 5 or more, but they brought pressure. Man, they were bringing. They were dialing it up in certain like. They were putting their pressure on specific parts of Oregon's offensive line, right? They were trying to overload with
they
pressure,
thought they
but
had a matchup.
yeah, and then they would go back. But if you were going to bring that pressure, you put your defense on an island, and they did to those corners. And I thought it was a quick adjustment by Oregon to expose it, but USC's defense just played better because they weren't asked to do as much. Athletes are not the problem at USC.
No, it's not skill level.
They're
it's
not.
not talent.
It's depth, and they were just being asked to do things that they couldn't do.
Well, Alex Grinch's defense, it just doesn't make sense. If you are not 100% perfect, you have to have a middle linebacker that is calling that defense that completely understands what they are calling, when they need to call it, and how it needs to be called, and how it needs to be communicated to everybody.
Yep.
If you don't have that brainiac at that middle linebacker spot, you are going to be out of position because you're going out onto the field with 2 play calls. And you have to read what the offense is doing and then make the play call. And then the way that defense works, because it's that 3-3 stack, or it's a hybrid of that type of defense, there is a twist, there is a stunt, there is a man at minimum added into the pressure every single time. And so when you have all these moving parts, it can be hard for an offense to see where it's coming, to diagnose, and be able to set up a play against it. The other problem is it can be hard for a defense to understand, hey, I now need to come because the lineman that, tight end I was going to cover, he just went in motion to the other side. So now I'm added into the blitz. Or, hey, it's a read stunt, so I'm going to rush hard upfield. If I beat the tackle, then I'm just going to keep going on my read. And if not, I have to dive back underneath. I have to understand, well, now because of the motion, we have to rock and roll our safeties over the top. So now instead of having a flat, I'm in a deep third as a nickel. It's stuff like that. It's too much movement. It's too much to understand. It's too much to figure out.
Well, and a lot of those twists, they just short up the outside too. Washington gashed SC the week before on the edges. 224 of their 316 yards came outside the tackle, and there was just a point of emphasis, like funnel it back inside. Do not get beat outside. And Oregon tried to go outside early. It just wasn't there like it was the week before. But I think all of those simplifications, they made it easier for Bo Nix. They made it easier for Bo Nix to throw for 412 yards.
100%. And honestly,
I think what that did was that's what pushed Bo Nix to the front of the Heisman race, is that side by side, you look at the stats, and when Bo Nix throws for 412 yards, 4 touchdowns on 21 of 31, it wasn't like he was seeing anything exotic back there. And Caleb Williams was flustered early when all the people on the West Coast were watching. And you look at the raw numbers, and people are just going to say side by side, Bo Nix outplayed Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is still an incredible quarterback.
He's the best quarterback in college football.
What he was doing was absolutely stunning to watch, because he had the little hook pass shot that he had on the sideline where, I thought he might have stepped out of bounds. But that when he's scrambling around, he's just like, whoop, right over the top. That's Mahomesian stuff. The stepping up in the pocket, feeling that pressure come from behind, and knowing that you can't do your back shoulders twirly whirly out.
Mhm.
He had to go inside and spin. Like, he has that presence that you can't teach, you can't coach. You just have it or you don't.
And he throws like a shortstop too. He can throw from any arm angle.
I'll tell you what, man. There were 3 throws that he had no business throwing. Like, full stop. Should not have thrown the ball. One of them on 4th down where it was like he just dotted his receiver, and there was a DB. You can't ask for better coverage. It was just the perfect throw. And then the touchdown to Brendan Rice, whereas the same play back to back on Triquez Bridges. You can't do anything about that throw. But his team is not very good. And that is safe to say. Up front, their offensive line is not very good. And the defense got gashed yet again, just not in the way we expected it to. I thought Oregon controlled that game from start to finish, though.
I 100% agree. And here's the thing, like, we say, like, they didn't run the same way that UW ran against them off the edges. Bucky still averaged 6.2 yards a carry.
Yeah, boy.
He ran all over them when he wanted to, and that's a banged-up Bucky Irving. He's got a bad ankle. What I think, honestly, happened is they set themselves up for, we are not going to get gashed in the running game. We are going to make Bo Nix throw against us, because that is going to put our athletes in the best position to make plays.
That's
because
right.
they don't have to think. They can just go and try and get the football.
Yep.
It might set us up for, a tough sledding game. But I was impressed with Coach Stein's game plan and attack. Usually he's fast, up-tempo. Let's get on the ball. Let's score. We want to go. We want to go. We want to go. They did not rush to the ball. They were letting the play clock go all the way down to 5 seconds to make calls, trusting Bo Nix. Bo threw for 412 and 4 touchdowns. He really probably should have had another 60 to 80 yards. I mean, Troy Franklin trips over the turf monster.
Turf monster.
2 balls hit Tez Johnson right in the face, and then multiple calls got called back because you had illegal formations or you had guys holding. So when you look at this game, as well as Bo played, it could have been even better. And to be honest, I don't think there's ever been a game this year where I think Nix got outplayed. I think if you go back down through and you look at the stats and you look at the numbers, the best case scenario is Michael Penix played him to a draw. Other than that, Bo has been the best player and the best quarterback in every single situation. And that's not just because he has the best arm talent. It's not because he's out there making the best plays with his feet. It's because he's the smartest quarterback in college football right now. And I don't think that that's an over-exaggeration.
I've been telling you all season long, anybody that'll listen, that one thing that Bo Nix is feasting on as well is he is really good, but the upgrade that they've got in the receiving core has been tremendous. And the fact that you've had, over the course of this season, 3 running backs out of the backfield that you can trust and depend on, right? Because at first it was Bucky and Noah, and then Jordan James as a receiving threat kind of emerging in the wake of Whittington's injury has been a godsend for them because of how many times we see that. Bo gets criticized for being a check down guy. How about the fact that those checkdowns go for big gains? They go for big yards, right?
Right.
And then you have the guys that are new and into the system, whether that's Tez Johnson, Gary Bryant Jr., or the guys that are the mainstays, and we've seen them just grow and develop. Troy Franklin, Terrence Ferguson. I thought Terrence Ferguson, he's been a different receiving tight end since that Stanford game where he went up in the end zone and he topped that guy and then gave him the 2 short. He has been a different receiver since then, and he's a good blocker too. But that group, being able to, we've seen that growth around them. You can't just take Troy Franklin away. You can't just take Tez away. They can beat you at every level of the defense, and I think that's something that we're seeing a growth over the course of this year. But think of how hard it is to defend when you have to worry about Tez Johnson going deep. You have to worry about Troy Franklin either going deep or the intermediate because he's a phenomenal route runner as well.
Right.
Like he is really stinking good. In the intermediate game, you have Terrence Ferguson and Patrick Herbert, and then you have the running backs and Bucky and Jordan James, where the short and intermediate, you have to defend literally every single level of the field because they've got playmakers there. And Tez, being able to cross the formation and cross the field with his speed, that opens things up so much more. I mean, it is a threat that it's can't really be quantified because you see him streak across the field and go across the formation, the safety having, you wonder why like Troy Franklin is always so open. It's because the safety has to move with Tez because he's crossing his face. And then right behind him, you have Troy Franklin, and there's nobody there. And he's just so damn fast. They've got speed, but they've also got a heck of a lot of talent on the outside. It's helping Bo.
100%. Well, and like I said, you have the smartest quarterback in college football right now.
You've seen it all.
He goes to the line, and he is unselfish. And when he needs to make a change, whether it's a pass play or a run play, to get his team in the best position to succeed, he has done it time in and time again. And the people who want to criticize him for being a check down guy, I'll never understand that. Because what is he supposed to do? Pass up the wide open guy to throw it into triple coverage?
Look, check down criticism, fair for NFL quarterbacks. Fair. It's fair. Because in the NFL, you have to make those Caleb Williams type throws. And like Caleb Williams, we saw he makes those throws, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Bo can do that consistently, but in the NFL, it's the cop out of I don't trust myself or I don't have the arm to make that tight window throw, so I check down. That's a fair argument. In college football, no. Take what the defense gives you because you're trying to exploit one guy not doing his job in college football. In the NFL, everybody does their damn job. Or you're terrible at defense.
Or you're fired.
Yeah, and you're fired, right?
Mm-hmm.
So criticizing the check down guy in the NFL is more than fair. And if you want to say you don't think Bo Nix will be a great NFL quarterback, but more power to you. The one thing that he's a damn good college football quarterback.
He's a bodacious college football quarterback.
That's why you get paid minimum wage, man. You don't come up with that stuff for free, you know?
That's right.
That's
why they
good.
pay me the big bucks.
That's
I
so
can read a
good.
billboard.
That's so good.
They don't do it like me.
No cap.
No, I'm wearing a beanie.
Sus.
That's not what that means. That is not what sus means, buddy.
No, I think you just creeping around wearing it is pretty sus.
That I'm wearing a beanie?
Yeah,
Are you
just
profiling me?
as you're lurking around everywhere. Yeah,
I'm
I'm
not
profiling
lurking.
you.
I don't lurk around anywhere. I'm too big to lurk.
My feelings.
Yeah, it did. You did hurt my feelings. I'm not a lurker. I'm very well known around these parts
As
because I get mistaken for Jason.
no, you don't.
Sure, Jan.
All right, back to
College football.
all right. We had controversy in the Pac-12. It has been resolved, and the person who broke this news, this is mind-blowing to me. Next on The Fan.
Two balls hit Tez Johnson right in the face. It was a 2-score game, 3-score game, something like that.
Yeah, it was 28-16. But remember, after that game in the Rose Bowl, it came out relatively quickly that UCLA at the Rose Bowl, Colorado's locker room got raided and stolen. Some stuff was stolen out of there.
Well, they have all the cool sunglasses.
A lot
and
of
stuff.
jewelry was stolen from players. Thousands of dollars worth of jewelry.
All the rollies.
Yeah. You know, it's so my dad played at Oregon, and he was Ahmad Rashad's backup.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, you have.
Well aware.
Yeah.
Noted NBA analyst.
That's right.
Ahmad Rashad.
Yeah, yeah. He and Summer Saunders.
Noted best friend of Michael Jordan.
Yeah. Ahmad Rashad would hide his jewelry in my dad's shoes. Because during practice and games, people would break into their locker room and steal stuff out of there. And he told my dad, was like, why do you hide your jewelry in my shoes? He's like, because nobody is stealing your shoes.
No one's breaking into old man Harris' locker.
Like, nobody's taking those.
No one would have suspected. No one wants those Air Monarchs.
Yeah, so he would take his jewelry out, he'd stash it in there. Smart move. Smart man.
Smart move. I mean, you
Um,
could get a lock.
But Pasadena police have made arrests in this case of the whodunit.
The bling ring.
Yeah. And this was broken. This story was broken by the Coach JB show. Jason Brown,
Not that Jason Brown.
the former head coach at Independence Community College, from the Netflix
He's such
the
a
Netflix show Last Chance U. Yeah, that Jason Brown.
The guy who compared himself to Hitler.
Yeah, he was one of those guys that
Yes.
Hitler was a good leader. Yeah.
Yes. That guy.
Yeah. Well, he hosts a show called the Coach JB Show with a Colorado alum named Matt McChesney. And
Oh yeah, big O-line guy. Yeah.
was he?
Like he is a
I
lot
don't
of a lot of O-line guys go and train with him.
I'll
Yeah.
take your word for that.
Mhm.
I'll take your word for that. But they do their show together, and they said that the suspects that they arrested were UCLA recruits from Beaumont High School down in Southern California. The Beaumont, now 2 players from Beaumont High School have been arrested in connection with the Rose Bowl heist. And they're juveniles, so their names are being kept private. But they're saying that 2 high school kids that were recruits for UCLA went into the locker room of Colorado and stole their jewelry.
I get it, kids are dumb, but God, you can't be that dumb.
Yeah, not only did you torpedo your chances of going to UCLA, you are now never going to play
No.
college football, except for maybe for Jason. Jason Brown may recruit you to whatever
Apparently.
JUCO he's going to be at.
Urban
Well,
Meyer gets a new job.
Maybe they'll go play for Doug Gottlieb.
Ooh. That was
Yeah.
that was good. That's
You
high
didn't-
level
You
there.
didn't think I
That's
had that
high
one in
level
my
there.
bag.
Yeah,
That's right. You
Maybe
didn't-
if Patrick Reed,
right.
Patrick Reed, who stole from his own teammates for goodness sakes at Augusta State,
Yeah.
or yeah, was it at Augusta? Yeah, it was at Augusta State. I think that's
I
where he
had
went.
Gottlieb. That's all I got for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I think those it's very narrow where you can go, but they have made arrests. It's 2 UCLA recruits. Stupid.
And it's so stupid because it's completely derails your recruitment. No one will recruit you. No one wants you around their program.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Like you can have guys that cheat. You can have guys that are rough around the edges. But the minute that you have someone that steals, they're gone.
Yeah.
You don't trust those guys in your locker room. The locker room has to be a special place, a safe space, right?
Yep.
For players, you have to trust that everyone in there, hey, my phone's going to be in there, my wallet's going to be in there. Like you have to trust that guys aren't going to go in there and take it. And when you have guys that have already had these issues and have already stolen, you're never, ever going to trust them.
Never.
And why would a team invite you out for an official game visit, which is where most of the big offers and stuff like that comes, because they can't trust you.
Yeah.
They're going to have someone there to babysit you the whole time. It
Yeah.
just completely torpedoes any chance of playing at the next level. It's so stupid.
Yeah, well, that happened, man. That happened. So,
Bet the shades look cool though.
yeah. Yeah, those shades. Did
Now
look
your
cool.
wrists are ice out, man.
Well, maybe that's why Shadur's like, see, this is why I wear my watch on the fields.
I thought it was so you could keep time. It's
What
3
if
o'clock.
What if he set it to the game clock? He's like, and mark.
now. He's sitting out there like, all right, now's the perfect time to tweet out my NIL deal in the middle of this second quarter.
All right, 503-864-6326. That's a Vancouver Ford text line. Let's talk a little NFL because we had something happen this weekend. A streak is over, but another streak continues. First is Rust with SportsCenter.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a SportsCenter update on 1080 The Fan.
This update brought to you by Laurelhurst Market Steakhouse and Butcher Shop. Their butchers are all trained chefs eager to help with cooking advice. Get to know your friendly neighborhood butcher online at laurelhurstmarket.com. First on the Fan, Josh Allen and the Bills hosting Russell Wilson and the Broncos on Monday Night Football to wrap up Week 10 in the NFL. The Bills are 7.5-point favorites. That's a 5:15 kick on ABC and ESPN. In college ball, Oregon quarterback Bo Nix named Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Week for the third time this season after throwing for 412 yards and 4 touchdowns Saturday against USC. Mississippi State has fired Zach Arnett, who was promoted to head coach after the passing of Mike Leach last December. San Diego State head coach Brady Hoke announced he's retiring at the end of the season, but the San Diego Union Tribune reports Hoke is being forced out. And Arizona State athletic director Ray Anderson announced he is resigning effective immediately. On the hard court, Trailblazers are off today. They're heading to Salt Lake to face the Jazz tomorrow night for an in-season tournament game as they wrap up their 3-game trip. The team announced today Ryan Rupert and Ish Wainwright have been assigned to the Rip City Remix. And ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski reporting the Nuggets and head coach Michael Malone have agreed to a multi-year extension that will make him one of the league's highest-paid coaches and lock him up through the 2026-27 season. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Rush at the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Get in the game at Spirit Mountain Casino. Watch and wager on all the pro and college action. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
One number does it all for contests and texting your favorite fan shows. The Vancouver Ford text line is 503-864-6FAN.
Black Friday is coming, and that's the smart time
This guy, I did almost kick his wife out of that concert.
Oh, what happened? Tell me the story.
So I was working front stage down at the Gorge,
Mm.
and where I'm at, you're not supposed to have people at all. And all of a sudden, I get tapped on the shoulder, and it's these two women, and they're like, "Can you take a picture of us?" And they are back behind, almost climbing up onto the stage. I was like, "You can't be here. What are you doing?" "No, I'm not taking a picture for you. You got to get out." And they're they looked at me.
Yeah, Officer Ortner.
That's right. I'm a narc. And they were like, they pointed at their hip, and on their hip, they had this like pass thing that was a picture, and it was like VIP, and it was like, I don't care that you're VIP. VIP's on the other side.
Yeah.
Like you have to go on the other side. And they're like, all right, don't take a picture of us then, whatever. And they like just kind of walked away.
Yeah, in
and
your face.
And I was like, those older ladies are jerks. Like, screw them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to deal with them. And then 20 minutes later, I'm here with Darius Rucker. It's DJ Silver. And it's on the big TV screen there at the Gorge. Darius like, I brought my family, my wife's here. And I look up and it's like, that is the wife. That is the lady that I kicked out from over here. Yeah. I wanted to throw
It's
her
a tough
out,
look,
too.
dude. That's a tough look.
It's not good when you're a long-haired hippie individual to be trying to kick out Darius Rucker's wife from Darius Rucker's concert.
Yeah. Well, you didn't. But I think that's why you had that job, and I would have been terrible at that job. Because I would have been
good at it.
Yeah, well, why did you not like hit on them then? Because I'm assuming they were, attractive.
Oh, they were very attractive. Yeah, the other lady, Randy Houser's wife.
Hold
the
on.
opener.
So wait a minute.
They were in a spot they weren't supposed to be.
You're just a rules guy.
No,
You're a big rules guy over
I'm not
here.
a big rules guy.
Yeah,
They were
well,
in a
obviously
spot,
you are.
They were in a spot that they weren't supposed to be. So I was like, hey,
Yeah,
like,
but
go
you know
somewhere
what?
where you're supposed to
Like,
be.
you should know these rules. They're hot. They get to go wherever they want. Like, them's the rules.
Yeah, but they're my mom's age. And I was like 19.
operating under that my whole life.
No. I was too
Yeah.
busy trying to hit
I'm
on
gonna
the...
do what I want.
I can do what I want. Jeff Russ, I'm hot. I'm Jeff
I'm
Russ.
hot.
You see this bod? You see
I
this
was-
beard?
I was too busy trying to
Sex
flirt
appeal.
with the MSUB soccer team. That was my issue.
The what?
Montana State Billings soccer team?
Montana State University Billings soccer team.
That's right. GNAC Power.
Where's this coming from? Were they also working security?
No, they were front row.
Oh, they were
They were
front row.
Yeah.
All right.
They were right there. Look, man, I was getting paid the big
Your
bucks.
priorities were out of whack at that
I was
time.
trying to protect Darius. I didn't know that he didn't
Yeah.
need protecting from his wife.
Yeah, well, he might. I don't want to. Don't assume.
That's true.
Let's not assume.
It's true. They were just in a spot they weren't supposed to be, and I didn't want my boss to come yell at me. I'd like the job. It was a fun job.
But your boss knew the rules.
I think my boss was busy getting beat up in the pit. I think that's what was happening.
There's a mosh pit at
Yeah.
Darius Rucker concerts.
At Watershed, yeah. There is a mosh pit up front.
Hold on.
And he was in the mosh pit. There was
How
a fight.
does that go during Darius? Like, is it during like when he's singing Wagon Wheel? They're just like, oh, let's rage.
They actually
There's
get
nothing about Darius Rucker music that makes you want to rage.
but remember,
If anything, it makes you want to get mellow. It's like he's got like a little bit of a stoner vibe to you.
who's
to
his
him.
clientele though? It is a country music festival. All people are doing are pounding Bud Light margaritas and Michelob Ultras, and they're out there getting rowdy. Two guys are yelling at each other. My boss goes out into the sea of people and is like, hey, you guys need to stop pushing each other. They decide we should team up like galactic forces and beat the crap out of this dude who's working security. And I looked over, saw that, was like, do I get involved? There are these two
You had to
middle-aged women trying to break into the Darius Rucker concert.
There you go.
I'm going to go handle business over here.
You took the lesser of two evils. Look at
Oh,
now.
he got beat up.
Now I'm questioning whether or not you're soft now because you didn't
What do
want to
you
get
mean?
in there.
Well,
That's what
he
every
was-
old lineman I knew. They were like,
he was
I'm going to
being
go.
a jerk. He was being a jerk. He had moved me from my spot next to the Montana State Billings girls over to where the middle-aged women were, so he could get
I
beat up.
still don't
That's
see
not
the
my
problem
issue.
here. I still don't see the problem.
Well, they are more in your age range. My age range was the soccer players.
All right. I'm not mad. I'm just kind of disappointed in you, Will. Did you see the Chargers lost yesterday?
They did.
Yeah.
Not by enough, though.
Of course, bigwillbets.com. No, 41-38, man. 41-38. They gave up a 40 spot to the Detroit Lions.
They got ran all over by Gibbs and Montgomery.
Do you want to know the stat out of that game that is mind-numbing? Since Justin Herbert was drafted and made his debut in 2020, the Chargers have lost 13 games by 3 points or less.
But Justin Herbert's the problem. He's putting up a historic amount of points.
There are some games where Herbert does not play well and it is his fault. But there's a lot of these 41-38 in the National Football League, not Pac-12 After Dark, the National Football League, where they're losing these games.
No, and you have a defensive-minded head coach, and you don't stop anybody. It's not, when you look at the LA Chargers, Herbert is not the problem. He has games where he's not the best. Is he in that tier 1 QB? No, he's probably not. But he's probably 2 or 3 in that tier 2 QB rankings, right? He is a good quarterback. He's a top 10 quarterback.
Yeah.
He's good. Oh my goodness, can we get a defensive coach over there that can finally get someone to stop one team? Just one.
No, I don't know. And like, if there wasn't enough to move on from Brandon Staley before, I think it's here now. And Brandon Staley's a good dude. He's a good defensive coordinator. He's not a good head coach. No. And look, it has run its course, but they need a change, and they need to change in a big way because the offense isn't the problem. Kellen Moore in that offense are humming, but the offense wasn't the problem before either. Last year, it was more so. You had some issues, but look, stop me if you've heard this before. Their receivers are getting banged up. They have depth issues mid and late year, and they get derailed because their defense hemorrhages points despite having talent at every single level of it. And not just like, hey, no, they should be better than this. No, they have elite players at every level of the defense. Like, tell me, you are an elite defense if you have a Derwin James, a Khalil Mack, and a Joey Bosa on your team. You are. You should be. And those aren't even, and then you have like Asante Samuel Jr. on the outside. Like, they should be absolutely suffocating on defense, but they're not.
No, they're not at all. But the thing that's frustrating about it is it's not like this big glaring thing. Every single week it's something new. Like, oh, now they can't stop the run. Yep. Now their corners are getting burned. Now there's miscommunication. You gotta chop the head off the snake here.
Yep. And then we had a streak end. Christian McCaffrey, his streak of consecutive games with the touchdown ends at 17 games in a row. And he was quite blunt with his assessment of his performance.
Did you do some lobbying to get back out there for the potential?
Yeah, I suck. Everyone else on the team scored, except for me. No, that means a lot to me for them to keep me in at the end of the game there and try to get me that record. But hey, I'll take a huge win.
I love that. If you missed it, the Niners absolutely dismantled the Jags, ending their winning streak at 5, 34-3, and ending a 3-game losing streak by the 49ers. But Christian McCaffrey did not get it in the end zone. It's the first time in 17 consecutive games that he did not score a touchdown. He is incredible. And I actually appreciated the fact that they got back in with the game well in hand. They get down and they get inside the red zone, and they tried to get him that touchdown to keep the streak going. Yeah. They got inside the 10-yard line. They put him back in because they wanted the streak to keep going, but he tied the record in most consecutive games. He did not break it and does not stand alone.
Yeah, I mean, DraftKings, they tweeted out today, if you rolled over a touchdown, your bet of $100 for the last 18 weeks on Christian McCaffrey, you would now have $0.
That is very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, what would have been before that, though?
5 million?
What?
It was 4 or 5 million.
Damn.
Yeah. It was if you bet $100 and you just kept rolling it, it was around the 4 million mark. I respect it, and I also think that that's a way to get other future free agents as well. When you have a player that is going for an individual award, it is the team, especially in football. Yeah. But when you have a head coach like Shanahan that says, I will set aside the team to help one of my guys get a goal or reach an individual achievement, that could be a nice little recruiting pitch when you have a free agent or someone who's thinking about leaving your team and being like, hey, dude, I am a player's coach. I will fight for you. I like the look.
All right. 503-864-6326. Don't drop the ball. Next on The Fan.
It's the
have 2 more weeks where it's full
Mm.
college football and NFL.
Boy, you ain't lying.
That's right. You have to celebrate. Glass half full, not half empty.
That's right. Now, one thing that we do need to talk about, we actually went off the rails, and we did talk Utah, Washington. In Washington, hey, grind it out, advance.
Survive and advance.
Played a
right now.
physical team. That's a bad matchup for them. They won that damn game. They're 10-0, man. They are 10-0. But Alfonso Tuputala, man. Alfonso Tuputala. How many times do we need to see this before it stops? And this one may be one of the more egregious ones.
He wasn't even close.
We've had Deshaun Jackson. We've had Kalen Clay against Oregon from Utah, of all schools. And now we have Alfonso Tuputala, who, I mean, he gets that ball and he is heading the other way. And he intercepted Bryson Barnes. And he starts running the other way. And it is walk-in, no-doubter touchdown. Except for on the 3-yard line. The 3-yard line. He started the process of dropping the ball. Like, usually your forward momentum, like Kalen Clay, right, against Oregon. His momentum, he dropped it on the goal line and it rolled into the end zone when Joe Walker scooped it up and went the other way for 6.
Mm-hmm.
This didn't even make it. The ball never made it to the end zone. It like made it to the end, then rolled right back to the 1. Like, it was nowhere close, man.
It wasn't anywhere near there. And then the other part that's so funny is he had like 6 teammates that are running right behind him, and none of them were like, hey, maybe that ball didn't get in the ends. I'll never understand it.
Muhammad Saad, the cornerback, number 1, and he was from the opposite side of the field. And when 52 was just like trucking along and the offensive lineman who fell on it, that was such a smart play by him.
It's an O-lineman.
Yeah, oh yeah. And look, you would like him to not be in the shadow of his own end zone, because guess what? This is the good thing about Washington. This is what great teams do, though. Tala has that flub. What do they do the next play?
They get a safety.
Safety.
And a great, it wasn't barely a safety. You had 3 Huskies that dominated their one-on-one matchups and were in there untouched.
Yep. I mean, that right there. That's what great teams do, and that's what Washington did. And I don't